Are you filled with fear, doubt, worry about the future of our country? Do you feel the urgency to act before it's too late? If yes, then this podcast is for you. It's time for us all to confront the critical issues threatening our nation's fabric, our democracy itself, irregardless of our political stance. If you're ready to face reality, handle the tough questions, and find real solutions, then here's your host, Debilyn Molineaux.
Welcome to the Terrified Nation podcast. I'm your host, Debilyn Molineaux. Can we save it? Well, that's what we're exploring in this podcast series. And for me, the answer is a resounding yes. We can, and we must. Now, this show is where we explore alternatives to being afraid. And in the first 5 episodes, I offer a background framework that I highly recommend that you listen to first, because it provides this good foundation for now what? As we interview guests who have gone from being afraid or angry or feeling hopeless to become advocates for our nation and our communities, to live into the promise of our founders. Each interviewee is dedicating themselves to a better future for all of us. So if you've listened to a few episodes now, you know that I like to start each show with a question that we'll explore together. And today's question is, how do we prioritize our civic life to just be part of our life every day? So today's guest is Mike Murphy. Mike spends his day job as Senior Vice President of Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. He also runs a project called Fix Us, which works with people to better understand and address our nation's polarizing divisions. Now, I got to know Mike through his work with Fix Us, where they use this play on words between the United States or US and us, the individuals who are active citizens of the US. More importantly, as he will note, Mike is the father of 2 boys and married to his lovely wife of 12 years. He quipped to me that he lives near the epicenter of our political dysfunction in the Washington, D.C. area. Mike Murphy, welcome to the Terrified Nation podcast. I am so happy to have you with us today.
Debilyn, it's great to be with you on this. It's been an honor and privilege to try to work with folks like yourself, Debilyn, and everybody else who's trying to grapple with the challenging state of our democracy and come up with ways to overcome.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Well, the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to take a little trip into the future, specifically your future. And the very first question of our interview is, how far do you want to go? We recommend somewhere between 2 and 20 years, but it's really up to you.
I like 20. Let's go on the outer reaches of that. That sounds good to me.
Woohoo! 20 years. Got to take her. Well, as we get into our time machine, let's go ahead and imagine ourselves. You might want to close your eyes for a couple minutes on this, just as we get into the 20-year time machine, and think about where we're going to land when we get to 2044. So as you take a few deep breaths, you might stretch up on your inhale. And when you exhale, sink down, settle, and feel yourself start to relax. We're in this time machine going to our imagined future in 2044. And when we get there, you're still going to be your 2024 self, but you're going to be observing your future self. And it's your preferred future, not your possible or probable future, but what you actually want for yourself. And so here we're pulling into the time machine station. Ding! And we're stepping out of the time machine, Mike.
Just like one of the Back to the Future time machines, like a DeLorean.
Oh God, wouldn't that be so cool with a DeLorean? But we're stepping out here into your future. Where are we?
Where are we? Well, let's see. Okay, 20 years from now, I'll be the round number of 60 years old. Okay.
Woohoo!
60 years old. I just turned 40 last year. So I'll be 60 years old. Okay, let's start. I think, physically, I expect actually who knows? Preferred, I probably will live in maybe not the same house, but I probably will live in the same area that I live now. I mean, I expect that I'll still be working age. Who knows what work looks like 20 years from now, but I'll still be of working age. I expect to still be immersed in some kind of public service and prefer to be still working in a public service oriented atmosphere. And despite the dysfunction of Washington, it seems to be a good place to potentially be working on such things. So I'm sure I'll still be here. And, what I get excited about too is just thinking about where my family will be at 20 years from now. Okay, so I have two young boys who are 20 years from now will be around 30. One a little under 30, one a little over 30, which is pretty scary to think about, but they'll be 30 years old. And I hope my preferred state is that I'll be enjoying with them. They'll be living successful adult lives, maybe with families of their own, where that'll be hopefully be the main satisfaction that I'm getting out of my life at that time.
I love that. And what will you be most proud of?
Oh, hopefully them. I mean, certainly hopefully them. There's no preferred outcome, right? I mean, this is like what I have an envisioned sort of career, what they'll do. They're still too young, who knows what they'll do. And I think trying to envision the future 20 years from now, the state of the world in terms of work and what work will look like is frankly really hard to envision, but hope to be proud of them having some kind of career, vocation, what have you, that is that's fulfilling for them, that's making a difference for them, that's meaningful for them, that is making a difference to other people's lives. So I think that's what first and foremost I'll be proud of. I hope to be proud of whatever contribution I've been able to make in trying to address some of the broader, bigger challenges that the country's facing. Because despite how dire things seem now, like when I envision getting out of the time machine 20 years from now, it's like studying history of this country as one can. It seems bad now, but it's been bad in the past. And I think we've had it's darkest before the dawn, so to speak. And I think I'm hopeful and optimistic 20 years from now, we'll be on the other side of this. And hopefully I could take pride in playing some small part with many, many others that are trying to change the trajectory of this democracy. So that's a couple of things. Hopefully
Okay.
be proud of.
And as you kind of observe your 20-year older self at 60, how will you spend your day?
Oh, I'm going to spend my day. I'll still be working. Okay. I don't know where it's going to be. We'll see if what I'm pondering right now is the virtual versus in-person office environment, like 20 years from now, and how much things have changed in the last 4 years on that. And I've kind of liked the mix, at least in my current work environment, where I get a couple of days a week when I'm in an office, the only connection to other people that are working on something at a personal level, interpersonal connection relationship that's really just hard over virtual and screens. So I'm hoping that I'm still going somewhere to an office in that regard. But I expect that we'll probably have huge changes from my virtual work environment standpoint over the next 20 years that will allow us to even expand upon what Zoom has allowed in different ways, right? So I'll be spending my day at work, partly in person, probably some in virtual environment. I certainly expect to be spending time with my family wherever they are, if they happen to still live by me. The kids, they talk all the time about like random places they want to live. It's like, and it usually has to do with whatever like football team they're liking at the time. They're just going to live there, and they tend to say they'll be playing for like the Lakers or something. So but putting that aside, I hope to be spend time with my kids, wherever they may be, whatever family they have on their own by that point, if they do, and obviously still spending time with my wife, which at that point, I can't do the math. So I certainly spend time. And actually, I say this all the time now, but 20 years from now, I better be able to do it. Like do more traveling. When you got young kids and stuff, and doing some of the more like international traveling and things like that hasn't happened as yet. I hope by that point there's been more, and that my wife and I get to spend some time seeing places of the world that we haven't seen before.
Yeah. So you'll be planning your next trip.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully the virtual environment will continue in better ways that allow for the connections over virtual that maybe some of the Zoom environment doesn't allow as good now. Maybe there'll be some enhancements on that.
I'm waiting for the 3D goggles and you feel like you're sitting at the same table.
Yeah, that'll be a good part of that. It'll be weird too, but
I know.
Work the kinks out by 20 years. Yeah.
In 2044, how do you feel most of the time?
What I hope in 20 years is, that I think part of me will probably feel the same way I feel now. I just feel incredibly blessed. The family that I have, both my immediate family, my family, parents are still alive now, that I get to spend a decent amount of time with, those connections, right? So feeling very blessed, good health, all those kind of things. So I think in 20 years from now, at an individual level, I expect hopefully to feel still very, very blessed in those regards. What I hope will be different is that right now I have this sort of dichotomy that at that individual level I can feel pretty blessed. But man, I feel really, really weighted down by the immense challenges that we seem to be living through as a country, as a society, as a world, and that dichotomy of feeling pretty blessed at a personal level with the relationships one has with family and friends and colleagues, juxtaposed to that environment is tough, and I think it weighs on people in different ways. And what I'm hopeful of is 20 years from now, just to elaborate more on what I said earlier, is I'm an optimist on these kind of things in terms of while it's down now, I think history suggests that we can overcome this, and so I'm confident that we will come out the other side of whatever we're living through right now, so that dichotomy won't be as much as it is now. Well, the individual blessed, but feeling more broadly concerned. I think I'm the type of person from a social impact standpoint that there's going to probably always another thing to improve. America's like, the cliche, right? Debilyn, it's like it's the never-ending story. You're never going to reach those ideals. That's why they're ideals, right? But hopefully we've made a lot more progress towards them by then, and collectively we'll feel a little less weight of these bigger challenges.
So you're still living in your same neighborhood. I just want to recap here.
I think so.
You're living in the same area. You've got two, 30-ish boys that are, out on their own, being healthy adults. They have their own families, perhaps. Mm-hmm. You hope they still live near you, but you're aware they might not. Their sports team fanaticism might take them somewhere else. And you're planning a lot of international travel with your wife, and you're feeling really blessed in how both what has happened in your personal life, but also like how you've been able to contribute to the progress, if you will, of our nation and how the nation itself. And I want to dive just a little bit deeper before I go on to the next standard question here and just say, could you identify what has shifted in society so that it's less weighty, so that there are more people who might feel blessed and like they have it all together than they do now? Like what's shifted?
That's a really good question. It's hard to answer. We're all working in different ways. The folks that work in some of the better democracy space, for example, if one wants to use that phrase, we're all working on different things that we think is going to change the trajectory that ends in a better outcome. But I think the reality is that we actually have no idea, to be honest, like of the ultimate causal factors that might change the trajectory of where we are on now. I think we have some ideas, but to foreshadow what they would ultimately be that changes it, I honestly don't know. I think that, but I say that with the I say that with the recognition that I think the indicators of what will suggest to me that we've changed some trajectory there in an important way, I can say, right? I think that we'll see data that suggests, right, that the amount of people that are seeing fellow Americans in their country on the opposing side of them politically as the enemy based on stats and statistics will not be as high anymore, right? That data surrounding things such as how proud people feel to be Americans once more will change the trajectory from where it's on now. Patriotism statistics have gone pretty low and very low by historic standpoint, and I think there'll be of something that has changed that to feel a shared attachment to this country again in some form or fashion. I think an important one will be mental health statistics. I think that the really concerning rise in all sorts of indicators surrounding the deteriorating mental health in this country, particularly amongst the younger population. For us to be on the other side of whatever we're all collectively feeling, those indicators are going to have to change. And I think we are going to have addressed a variety of what many people think of as a variety of sort of broader national, quote unquote, challenges that have been hanging out there for a long time and that left unaddressed are inevitably going to impede our ability as a nation to achieve what we want to achieve. And, I'm focused in my day job primarily on what I think is one of those, which is our deficit and debt challenges at the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. Earlier when I chose 20, it's not hard for me to go on 20-year projections.
I think the government moves slowly, and that's part of one of the many challenges we have today.
No doubt. So I think that we will have addressed, right, and somehow have gotten our political system capable of addressing once again some of the bigger national challenges that we face, whether it be deficits and debt, whether it be revitalizing our education system in this country, or whether it be reforming what obviously everybody realizes we need to reform is our immigration system. All these bigger challenges that we haven't addressed. 20 years hence, hopefully we have, that has restored some faith, which that I think is go back to the indicator point and I'll land there. That indicator of restoring faith that democracy actually works, that has to turn upwards from the level it is now, because if it doesn't, then the risks of of the health of democracy long term are real, right? So I think hopefully that gets to the answer, Debilyn. I think it's hard to pinpoint the causes that'll change that sort of weightiness on some of those bigger issues to result in a different place 20 years from now. But I think that it's clearer to me which indicators will be different if we've done that.
You've just given me ideas for about 3 more guests on Terrified Nation. Good. So, coming back to looking at your future self in 2044, what do you observe as your 3, maybe 5 priority values? And you might use qualities as another word.
To me, I would go a few and probably in this order. I think that one is the value of relationships, what is relationships when it comes to, keep going back to family and the importance of family relationships is of highest value to me. In addition, I value of faith. I am a religious person, so I think that faith and the meaning that brings to people's lives, I think it certainly does to mine, is an important value to me, and I expect 20 years hence should still be for sure. And the value of service through my job, through more volunteer, non-job activities. The value of community service in different ways has always been important to me. I expect it'll still be of the utmost importance to me 20 years from now. And I think inspired too, particularly younger demographics, to kind of build a civic life and revitalize civic life in this country, which I think is in dire need too.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so many people out there trying to survive right now that civic life comes after survival.
Oh, totally. I think that's right. I'm subscriber to the too much is given, much is expected sort of mantra, right? And
Yeah.
I try to remember that every day. For whatever reason, I was, blessed to be born in the family I was at the time in history of this world that I was, right? It's like incredible. But at the same time, yeah, there are lots of people that are just struggling by it. They don't have the luxury to think about, bigger problems societally in a given day. Yeah, they're struggling to living paycheck to paycheck, how they're getting their kids through school. Lots of people having multiple jobs, people dealing with all sorts of physical and mental health challenges that we talked about before. And so yeah, I totally get at the sentiment of what you were saying, Debilyn, of that trying to inspire folks broadly involved in civic life when they are struggling with the challenges of life in all sorts of other ways is hard. And that's why I think it is incumbent upon those that have the ability to do so to try and inspire that in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask just a question. You mentioned faith as your kind of second priority value. Can you expand on what is faith to you?
Oh, wow. What is faith to me? Well, faith to me is religious faith in a sense that I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, and faith to me brings meaning and purpose to life. It's faith, right? Because it's not based on scientific truth. It's based on some other higher level of truth that one believes for a variety of reasons. And so I believe that faith gives meaning to life. I believe my faith is what describes to me why and how we've come to be in the world that we live in now, for all its positive and for all its negatives. And that faith makes me believe that the world overall is good and that the trajectory of this world is good, which is important for numerous reasons per what we've been discussing over the course of this conversation, that gives one hope and in really challenging times at a deep fundamental level. So that's a little bit, Debilyn, on why faith.
Yeah, that's really good. What you're talking about there in faith, bringing purpose and meaning to life. And then the trajectory piece of it also is like, we think about progress being this straight line. And then there's that meme that says what it actually looks like. And it's this whole like jiggity line that goes up and down and backtracks, et cetera. And I feel like we're in one of those backtrack moments right now before we move forward again.
Agreed.
So, all right, we're coming in the home stretch here. We have just a couple of questions left. And this next question is, for your future, your preferred future to be realized, for it to be possible, what does your community need to provide or support or include?
I'm going to go back to some things we already talked about before. I think we use the word community, Debilyn. It's like, so for me, I live in Northern Virginia. I actually live in one of the most affluent counties in the entire country, in a neighborhood that's very affluent and everything's fantastic. Okay, all these kind of things, right? So it's like the things that will allow, I think, societally to live in a broader community, right? That gets at some of the bigger challenges that we've been talking about is kind of how I'm going to address this a little bit, as opposed to maybe my specific kind of local community here.
Well, and so I just want to point out that where you're going here, you see that where you live already provides what you need, and you see that continuing in perpetuity. And so what you're thinking about, or shifting the question to be, is like, how do we have that? How does everyone have something like that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we have to improve the education system in this country. I mean, I think that is a goal, that is an objective that cuts across political beliefs and ideologies. I think we realize that we've just got something fundamentally off here in how we're educating people. That I don't pretend to have the answers to that. I just do think that we need to have a real focus on reform of our education system that is both going to think about how we prioritize things in our primary, secondary education, such as civic education, right? I think that we've heavily prioritized math and science at a lot of levels, haven't done as much prioritization from a resource perspective on civic education. I think that's going to have to be part.
Or art and music.
Yes, and the humanities are certainly part of that too. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that we're going to have to, and then obviously the cost of higher education is a huge hindrance on the ability for people to climb the economic ladder in this country. And we're going to have to deal with the costs of higher education in some way to allow more people the opportunity to achieve economic success in their lives. So I think the education system, both at the primary, secondary level and at the university level, are going to have to be improved. As we already touched on a little bit, I do think that we're going to have to figure out for communities to provide and improve mental health in this country. I think that we're going to have to address that. I think that don't pretend to be an expert on all these things. I'm certainly a subscriber to a lot of the great work that Jonathan Haidt's been doing recently on social media and technology and some of the impacts those are having on youth mental health. I think that's important, and I think that's going to have to be part of the discussion and how we turn around some of the trajectory of mental health amongst younger populations. That'll lead us into the future. I think if we're going to turn the trajectory around, we're going to have to look at that and just think about more broadly which I think has changed a lot. The societal stigmas around mental health, I think, have changed a lot in good ways, and I think that will continue. But I think mental health and communities providing adequate mental health is going to be really important. And then, look, I'm going to have to give the shameless plug for the work I do every day on fiscal budgetary issues. But I do think if we are going to have communities in this country be places that are providing the environment for broader well-being right across various indicators, then we're going to have to grapple with the resources and fiscal and budgetary challenges at all levels of government over the next 20 years. We're living through a demographic wave that is real, that people are retiring and aging with not enough resources to support that based on the way that we budget, tax, and spend right now. And we're going to have to reckon with that if we are going to be able to then be able to make smart decisions about how to allocate resources towards other government programs and otherwise that can help people.
All right. So last question, and this is where I want you to really dig into your work as much as you can too, about what is it that you are doing today to influence or co-create this community for the future? So you talked about the fiscal responsibility through Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. Do you want to mention what you're doing with Fix Us as well, or
Sure.
Frame it up about how your work and how people can participate with your work.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to add on a little bit about the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, because I think there's some good things happening right now that's for reason for optimism and hope. I think it's easy for people in the cynical times we are to say we're just never going to solve any of these problems. There actually is some legislation moving through Congress that we are focused on heavily that would establish some bipartisan commission of folks from both sides of the aisle, equally appointed, to be tasked with coming up with a plan and a solution to address some of our bigger budget challenges that we've been neglecting for some time. And if it's enacted soon, it actually could be something where they come up with a plan well in advance of some big fiscal deadlines in 2025 that no matter who's elected president is going to have to address. We're going to have another debt ceiling crisis upon us. If I think I'm more depressed about that.
That just seems like such not a big deal right now, because it's they come up with a continuing resolution.
They come up with things all the time, but then they just keep pumping on challenges. So coming up with a plan in advance. So the point here is there's some real momentum on some important piece of legislation that seems to have support that could get considered soon in Congress to try to make some progress on the budget issues. Now, Fix Us, which I direct to, was born out of a recognition that our inability to address our budget challenges is due to more fundamental problems with our democracy and polarization. And so we've been doing various research and convenings of networks of folks that are trying to work together to address that, because as you well know from your incredible work at the Bridge Alliance, the budding network of people and organizations addressing this is growing by the day, and trying to provide the space where people can connect with others to try to collaborate is important. And so we try to provide a space to do that. So for folks that are interested in getting involved in that, we'd love to have them as part of our Fix Us network. We want to try and bring attention to fundamental norms in our democracy. Like, I think that there's a lot of attention, importantly so, on what are the structures, rules, laws, policies that need to change that result in a more, representative, responsive democracy, and all those things are important. There's a range of unwritten rules and norms that need to be addressed to not dehumanize the other side. Respect for free speech, the importance and acknowledgement of compromise, these kind of norms that are just kind of eroding. We want to do what we can to try to also draw attention to those things.
So how do people get in touch with you if they want to get involved with Fix Us?
Well, anyone can sign up for Fix Us at fixusnow.org.
So, Mike, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for being with me today at this interview. You have any last words for us? Just
thank you, Debilyn, for what you're doing with this podcast in terms of what you're trying to achieve. I think that I've been struck by something I heard that I just can't get out of my head that came out of a focus group. Frank Luntz did the focus group sometime last year. And he did a focus group, but I think it was like this, it was like a moderate voter focus group. I think it was like a swing voter thing. It was like independents, like true ones. Like, these are people that voted, like, I think it was like they voted for Obama, then Trump and Biden or something like that, right? Kind of went back and forth. And it was just a, state of political affairs focus group, whatever. I just can't get out of my head with something that Frank said. Frank said that, listening to these people, how frustrated they are, how frustrated, exhausted they are with both parties in the political system right now. He goes, a lot of people think we're on the verge of civil war. We're going to be in like armed conflict, all those kind of things. And he goes, that's not going to happen. He goes, now there might be pockets of that. There might be in but that might happen, but it's not. He goes, no, the bigger central threat that I'm recognizing these people, and it's palpable, is they're going to completely lose hope. And they're going to completely check out, and they're going to cede the field to the extremes that will just exacerbate what we all don't want to happen. So I say that because I think that's right. That resonated with me because of what you're doing to try to, as a way, and what other people are trying to do too, is a simple point. It's trying to give people hope and a more optimistic future as possible, which I think is like the key objective that we got to try and figure out right now. So thank you for what you're doing too.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Mike. And I want to finish with an invitation to you and to everyone who's listening right now. And the invitation is to take 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes, because neuroscience has shown us that if we can think about a future we want for 5 minutes a day, we introduce an experience of awe. So think of a time that you had some awe in your life and you apply that to your future vision. Do that for 5 minutes a day. You will start to create or make choices to create that future that you want for yourself. And can you imagine what would happen if everybody in America figured out what they want for themselves, spend 5 minutes a day doing this, and we would completely transform our system. So that is my invitation, Mike, to you and to every listener of the Terrified Nation podcast.
I love it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
Mike's interview and others are part of a national research project to catalyze our American imagination for our individual and our shared future. If you would like to participate in this national research project, visit americanfuture.us. In the meantime, thank you, Mike Murphy, for sharing your preferred future with Terrified Nation and providing Fix Us and your work with Committee for Responsible Federal Budget as your contribution, helping us get to a future that we want. You inspire me to do more. In closing today's show, I'd like to thank you, the listeners, for giving a damn about our nation. We may be a terrified nation today, but we can do better. We can save the USA. Join me next time.
So that's it for today's episode of Terrified Nation. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week who posts a review on iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Debilyn Molineaux herself. Be sure to head on over to terrifiednationpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Debilyn's gift and join us on the next episode.